What's going on, guys? This is Josh. Welcome to Treksplained. For today's video, we'll be talking about an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation called The Defector. It is episode 10 of the third season. Sit back and relax. Let me Treksplain something for you. The Defector starts out with Data reenacting a scene from Shakespeare's Henry V while on the holodeck. Captain Picard is watching as Data acts and applauds him on his performance. Now, this subject will come up to play a little later, but we'll get to that. Commander Riker contacts them from the bridge and tells them of an unidentified ship whooshing its way through the neutral zone towards Federation space. Picard acknowledges and leaves the holodeck with Data. As they walk down the halls, they talk about how a leader like King Henry would want to share in the feelings of his soldiers on the eve of battle. Data asks if he'd be able to perform for the crew anytime soon, and Picard pulls back on the reins and says, "Let's not rush things." Picard arrives on the bridge, and Riker informs him that the unidentified vessel is a Romulan scout ship. Lieutenant Worf asks if they should tell the scout ship to back off, but then notices the scout ship is trying to contact them already. They open the channel, and the scout ship is asking for help and that he's being chased. The Enterprise doesn't notice any other ship chasing him, but they turn on the view screen in order to check things out. A Romulan warbird decloaks and is in obvious pursuit of the scout ship. And that's where the opening credits happen. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do. Back from the credits, the warbird is firing quite aggressively at the scout ship. Picard hails them and tells them to fuck off with their aggressive shit in the neutral zone, but the Romulans don't pay attention. The scout ship gets hit and is skewing out of control, but they're in Federation space now, so the Enterprise extends its shields around the scout ship and prepares to battle the warbird. But the warbird turns around, cloaks, and heads home. The Enterprise beams the Romulan in the scout ship aboard, and Worf and Riker head to the transporter room to deal with him. The Romulan demands to speak to the captain, but Riker's whoa, buddy. Who are you to bark orders? You're getting your ass to sickbay. But the Romulan is very adamant that it can't wait, so Riker goes, "Fine," and they head to the conference room behind the bridge to talk. The Romulan says his name is Sub-Lieutenant Cetal, and he's letting them know there's a new military base being built inside the neutral zone on Nelvana 3, which goes against the Treaty of Algernon. Picard thanks him for the information and tells him to get to sickbay. Cetal is like, "Really? Don't you want to talk to me anymore?" Picard's like, maybe later. After Cetal leaves, the bridge officers talk about him behind his back. Should he be trusted? Some say yes, some say no, some say he's a spy, some say he's a plant. Picard says it's always a game of chess with them, referring to the Romulans. Geordi LaForge looks out the window at the scout ship and says, "Well, at least we can take a look at some Romulan technology." Picard orders Riker to conduct an interrogation and for Geordi to check out the scout ship. He says they have less than 48 hours to prevent a war, or perhaps to start one. Right after he says that, the scout ship blows up. Well, so much for that idea. Now in sickbay, Cetal admits to Riker that he set the auto-destruct sequence to prevent Romulan technology from falling into the hands of the enemy. Riker's like, "But aren't you defecting?" Cetal says he's not a traitor, and then says the Federation is just trying to exploit him. Dr. Crusher finishes healing Cetal, and he thanks the doctor, but is surprised she knows about Romulan metabolism. She's had practice from the incident at Galorndon Core. Worf says he's aware of a lot for a logistics clerk, but Cetal says it's common knowledge. This is Cetal's first mess up, but we'll see him mess up throughout the episode in different ways. Worf and Cetal exchange insults for a moment before Riker steps in with his own insult and shuts them both up. Worf leaves to set up quarters for Cetal, and Cetal laughs because he likes him. But we need to be careful, because that kind of a person will get them all killed. Now in his quarters, Cetal orders some water from the replicator but doesn't know the unit of measurement. He drinks and sits down to contemplate his situation. He pulls out a poison pill from his boot, but just to look at it. Picard and Data are making long-range scans of Nelvana 3, which doesn't show anything really out of the ordinary about that planet. Not even habitable. They admit that with cloaking technology, they could theoretically be hiding a fleet there, but they'd never know. Picard gets a message from Starfleet Command and goes into his ready room to take it. Admiral Hayden tells him in a delayed message that the Romulans are demanding the return of the defector Cetal. He says he's skeptical too, but the Romulans are making a good show out of it. Then he says it'll be on Picard's shoulders in the end, but suggests he heads along the border towards a position closest to Nelvana 3. Picard then asks Worf to come to his ready room. This is setting up for something big later, but we won't know that for a while. Back on the bridge, they analyze the chase between the warbird and the scout ship earlier, and notice the warbird could have easily been able to catch the scout ship, but held back. The question is, why? Picard takes another message from Admiral Hayden and says help is coming, but will be too late. Data enters the room and Picard tells him to launch a Class 1 probe in order to find out more info from Nirvana 3. He tells Data to keep an unbiased record so history has a neutral viewpoint in case things go bad. He asks how the crew's spirit is, and Data says, worried but confident. Data asks the captain why he can't see that. Picard says that, unlike King Henry, Picard can't walk around in disguise to find out the state of his troops. Data leaves and Picard quotes a particular line of Shakespeare. Now if these men do not die well, it will be a black matter for the king who led them to it. Now under interrogation, Satal is withholding information from Riker and Deanna Troi. Says the questions are irrelevant. Satal says they're all cowards. Back on the bridge, Picard receives a hail from the security officer of the Klingon vessel Bortas. He tells Worf to go downstairs to take care of it. Data launches the probe to Nirvana 3 and tells him to coordinate with Geordi for any information. Data heads to engineering and discusses the situation with Geordi. They have a difference of opinion with Satal's authenticity. Geordi talks about intuition versus facts with figuring out any given situation. The probe then reports back that there are subspace radio emissions and ionic disturbances at Nirvana 3. They take the information to Picard in the radio room to report. The planet is still barren, but there is some evidence to support Satal now. But they need to go there to be sure. Data and Satal are now sitting in 10 forward discussing whether Satal should be trusted. Satal talks about how he wanted some comfort, but the stars outside are not his. Not familiar to him. The drinks are even crap. Says he's homesick, but trying to accept his fate. Data takes Satal to the holodeck and shows him a recreation of the Valley of Chula, one of the few places that the Federation has knowledge of from Romulus. At first enthused, Satal then says shut it off. That's not his home anymore. He tells Data to tell Captain Picard that his real name is Admiral Jarak. Another message from Admiral Holden confirms with Picard that they're holding Admiral Alidar Jarak, but to take anything he says with a grain of salt. Unreliable at best. Jarak is escorted into the ready room with Picard and talk about his credentials and trust and evidence. Picard and him have a debate about credibility and how to prove himself. A Romulan defector is almost a contradiction in terms. What are they to do? Better cooperate. Now in the conference room, Picard tells the bridge crew they're heading in. Jarak provided them with data about the Romulan fleet and ships, and they're taking the risk. The Enterprise warps into the neutral zone. They encounter no resistance at all, but presume that Romulan ships are watching. Nobody likes it. It's quiet. Too quiet. Picard compares it to Custer's battle at Little Bighorn. They arrive at Nirvana 3, but find nothing good. They bring Jarak to the bridge and ask him why the fuck are they there. Jarak's like, what? But I saw the shit. Picard shakes his head and asks if they were feeding him wrong information. Jarak's like, nah. The Enterprise turns around, ready to retreat back to Federation space, but are suddenly blocked by two Romulan warbirds that are decloaking. They fire on the Enterprise, but not enough to do any lasting damage. They get hailed, and it's Commander Tomalak on the screen. They discuss the proof they had, and he says it's just an orbiting probe. Archaeological research. Picard and Tomalak back and forth a bit before Tomalak says he's going to display the Enterprise's broken hull in the Romulan capital. Jarak speaks up and discusses loyalty with Tomalak. Tomalak says to return Jarak and then surrender. Gives him 30 seconds to decide. Tells Picard to surrender and think about the people who serve under you. Picard's like, if the cause is just and honorable, they are prepared to give their lives. Then the coolest scene in the episode happens. Picard signals to Worf, and Worf just smiles and sends a message. Then, boom! 3 Klingon birds of prey decloak, ready to aid the Enterprise in whatever the Romulans have to offer. Tomalak is pissed, but remains composed, saying, you still won't survive, Picard. Picard's like, let's die together then. Tomalak backs down, and the Romulans cloak and retreat. Picard says to Worf to let the Klingons know he says thank you, and then they head back to Federation space. Later on, Admiral Jarak kills himself with the poison pill he had in his boot earlier. There's a letter for his wife and daughter, but it will be undeliverable unless the political situation changes anytime soon. The Enterprise warps back home, and the episode ends. That's all for today's episode. Thanks for watching Treksplained. If you liked today's video, please drop a like and subscribe so you get the latest updates on new videos. Let me know in the comments below if you liked the video, if I could improve on things. See you next time on Treksplained.